Hello, lovely people. Welcome to episode 16 of the 21st Century podcast. It's me, Emily, as always. So how's everyone doing? As promised, I'm back again for another episode. I promised in episode 15 that I'd do an episode all about my autism diagnosis. So this is that episode. I'm going to basically start from the beginning. And just talk about sort of early signs, stuff like that, childhood, all the way through to kind of my secondary school and uni, college and adulthood, all that sort of jazz. So I think I'm just going to go straight into it because obviously I did quite a big rambly episode in January. So I'm going to say grab yourself a snack and a drink of your choice and buckle in for a long old journey really, and a bit of a story. So right, I'm going to do a little disclaimer beforehand. I'm going to include a brief history of my life within this podcast. Obviously I could never include everything that I struggle with, kind of sensory wise, autistic wise, mental health wise, and I'm choosing to leave some more private and personal struggles out, which I think most people would understand. Because I've got to protect myself online and I've got to protect myself, just generally, I guess. And obviously some things will always be private, but I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be open as much as I kind of can. So I'm going to start right from the beginning. So I have always had sensory issues, like since I was little. As a baby, I cried when I heard loud or unexpected noises like sneezes. I always struggled with clothing. Like my mum said I would never be able to, like as a baby I hated socks. Like I couldn't tolerate socks and would always like pull them off myself. So I struggled with clothing and I couldn't tolerate anything tight. And apparently I also found it difficult to be cuddled. So that's kind of me as a baby. They're kind of, my parents are seeing signs that just little things. Like I've been struggled to be picked up and hugged and just reacting to loud noises and little kind of things like that. So then as I kind of got a bit older, so say at kind of like nursery school, preschool, whatever you want to call it, I would kind of get along with everyone and joined in with kind of games and stuff. I never really like led games or anything like that. I'd just be someone who joined in. I did, as a child and toddler, I avoided all like forms of messy play, so stuff like sand and Play-Doh, and like painting with like finger painting, that sort of thing. I wasn't like, it was never my scene, it was never anything I wanted to do, and I also struggled a lot when going to like birthday parties and things like that, both my own birthday parties and other children. I think I would struggle and kind of hate the attention and end up just retreating and crying. I'm very much someone who likes to blend in, and I think I've talked about birthdays before. I struggle with birthdays because the attention's like on you for the day and it's not any other day of the year and it's the weirdest thing in the world. So I'd hate the attention, end up kind of crying, retreating, not enjoying birthday parties, not enjoying kind of play dates, is that what they're called, when you like go home after school with other like children and stuff. I found it all a bit weird. Also I was an extremely fussy eater and would only eat spaghetti bolognese like for lunch and dinner as a toddler. Apparently I was very fussy. I'm still a fussy eater now. But that was the only thing I would eat, and it's actually not something that I really like now, spaghetti bolognese, so I'm not really sure why that was my dish of choice. Anyway, so that was kind of nursery school, and then I kind of struggled a lot at primary school, so that's kind of age 5 onwards. So I struggled a lot with the kind of, being left at school. I got very upset. My parents would pretty much have to bribe me to kind of, if I could go all week without crying when they left me in the school playground or with my teacher, I'd get like a treat or something like that, because I just found it really difficult, like knowing that they were leaving me there kind of thing. I struggled just getting to school, obviously, but also when in school as well I was struggling, and kind of sensory things were cropping up, and I think my parents were seeing sort of like these little signs here and there. So my parents decided to take me to see a private educational psychologist, just to kind of get their opinion on me. And as a result of that, they actually referred me to an occupational therapist, so an OT. And I had like sessions of occupational therapy over a number of weeks and like throughout primary school. So that was on the NHS, so the National Health Service in the UK. So I had those sessions as a child, like as part of like the NHS, like what they offered. And yeah, I've had kind of blocks of sessions throughout primary school, just because, I don't know, occupational therapists really helped me. I used to not be able to brush my hair, I used to not be able to brush my teeth. She really helped me, my OT, to like desensitize to the world and understand that the kind of getting used to the idea of brushing certain areas of my body, because to me it was very like a foreign feeling and very hard to deal with. And yeah, so that was kind of throughout primary school. I kind of continued to struggle, both, I would say, academically as well as just like physically and emotionally. I've always been quite sensitive, no surprise there. But academically I struggled with maths particularly. It's just never clicked with me. Numbers, maths, just, it's not me. It's a struggle. I've always struggled. I've been alright at English, but maths is something I continued to struggle with throughout my life. So yeah, I'm a very kind of sensitive person, and I struggled my way through primary school, and it was hard, and I very much probably learnt how to mask from a young age, even though I didn't know I was doing it. I was just trying to get on. I've always found the classroom setting to be a weird one. It's always very noisy, it's not very conducive to sort of learning, I feel. Yeah. But anyway, I'm kind of sort of going off on one a bit in that respect. Anyway, so struggled at primary school, and then secondary school creeped up on me, like it does to everyone who is aged 11 and has to move on to big school. Like, what a nightmare. Obviously I know I'm only giving you like a brief kind of overview, but yeah, secondary school. I've always been awful with change and transitioning between different parts of my life, so things like moving house, going on holiday, having days off, that sort of thing. And I wasn't used to such a busy school environment, and like constantly having to navigate through huge crowds of like children to get to and from classes. So if you don't know, like in the UK at secondary school, you have like 1 hour lessons, and then you kind of go between each. I'm sure it's quite similar to like high school and things like that. So you have, sometimes you have like 6 or 7 lessons a day, but usually maybe like 4 or 5 depending on what year you're in. And then obviously you have to like navigate the school and get around like to the different departments of what you're studying and stuff like that. So yeah, I found that difficult. I did start seeing a homeschool link worker. This was part of CAMS, so the Children and Adult Mental Health Service. Is that right? I think I've said it in the right way round. Anyway, yeah. So I saw a homeschool link worker every week. Towards, I would say, like it goes year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11. So you're 16 in year 11, and then you go on to sixth form, which is another 2 years of learning. So year 7, 8 and 9, you're kind of, you're just learning. Year 10 and 11, you're getting more towards your exams like GCSEs in the UK, and then sixth form is A-levels in the UK. So yeah, year 7, 8 and 9, it was difficult. Again, I was masking a lot in school. I think academically I was doing all right. I was doing good in English. I think I was like middle set or something, like, doing average. But where I was probably really excelling was like art and PE, so physical education, sports. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I was still in the bottom set for maths. Again, maths is something I've always struggled with, and because I was in the bottom set, I was also with some of the kind of more like not well behaved people, so people who weren't as interested to learn. You know, you always get like, you know, people who are disruptive learners and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, being in the bottom set, you know, we should have been kind of in a quieter, more, you know, like not one-to-one, but like smaller groups and stuff like that. But it was still like a class of like 25, and it was, you know, we still weren't really learning that much. So yeah, maths is a struggle. Anyway, so I was struggling, and I was seeing a homeschool link worker. So homeschool link worker it's kind of in the name. They kind of go between your home and like school as a kind of link between like my parents and like my teachers at school, and can like feedback between stuff. And also the lady for me acted as a kind of like impartial, confidential person I could talk to. So I ended up a lot like crying and discussing my struggles like once a week, but it was good to have someone like impartial, I think. And I would also go up to the Senko's office, so that was a special needs like coordinator for the school, and she used to let me just sit in her office in like break and lunch times, because it was like so noisy at those, you know, break and lunches when everyone's like outside, and it used to be really noisy. So I'd just go and sit and sort of cry because I was overwhelmed. Yeah, so I mean, I had at primary school and secondary school, I had something called an independent educational plan, I think, which is called an IEP. I don't think they exist anymore. I think you now have like a statement, or I think it's called a statement if you have special needs, or like you need extra help within schools, that you have something that kind of sums up all your like kind of needs and stuff like that. But at the time it was called an IEP, and I had that throughout primary school and secondary school. So it kind of gave me, it showed my teachers mainly that I had sensory processing issues. So my like occupational therapist kind of wrote up that at around aged 8, she said, you know, I have sensory processing disorder, that's something Emily struggles with. So that was put in my IEP, and because I have problems processing things such as questions on exams, that also played into it as well. So I used to get 25% extra time on any official exams. So what either used to happen was I would start earlier before everybody else. I'd start my exam earlier in a separate room, so not in the exam hall, otherwise it would be quite noisy for everyone to come into the exam hall and I'm still writing. Or what I would do is I'd always be in a separate room with like 2 or 3 other people taking exams, and I'd just stay longer. I knew a few people who had kind of written statements and things where they would type their exams on laptops, or they'd have 50% extra time, depending on their needs and stuff. It was a bit difficult to explain to my friends, because my friends didn't know about my sensory issues. You know, why do you get 25% extra time? But I just kind of explained that I had like a kind of neurological sort of processing thing, so that sort of did it. So yeah, that was super helpful throughout primary and secondary school. That really helped me, because I am that much slower at processing information than the rest, you know, everyone else my age. So yeah, that was one good thing that came out of having an IEP and a sort of statement at school. So yeah, that is secondary school. And yeah, I sort of became too old to have occupational therapy on the NHS. So once you get over the age of 16, you're not deemed a child anymore, which is obviously correct. So between like 16 and 18, I saw an OT privately, because I was really struggling at school and like sixth form and college. So I saw someone privately, and I think it helped. And I've said this on my website as well, that I've always found occupational therapy to be the best form of therapy for me. It's about desensitizing your body, and it's an actual like physical therapy rather than a talking therapy. And obviously I have nothing against talking therapy. I think they work really well for some people, but for me it brings everything up, things that I've struggled with in the past, and talking about my past and stuff like that. It's bringing up old stuff, it's churning up old stuff, and I know sometimes that's a good thing to get, talk about the past and where you've come from and stuff, but for me, I think it made me more upset and it was more triggering because I was talking about stuff all over again. Whereas occupational therapy, it's very much right, we're doing this, something like, I've talked about this before on my blog, like body brushing. So there's something called the Will Barger brushing protocol. I think it's an American thing, and you get like these therapy brushes and you can like brush your arms and your legs. Google it or have a look on my blog, it makes more sense, but that really helped me to like desensitize to like different fabrics and stuff on my skin, and also like people brushing up against me and stuff, and it's something I still do like today. In the evenings I'll like before bed I'll do it. I think the actual like special, like the proper protocol, you're meant to do with an OT and it'd be overseen, and you're meant to do it multiple times a day. But read up about it. I still just do kind of body brushing as and when I can. But yeah, it's little things like that. And I can, since seeing an OT, I'm able to brush my hair. I'm able to, brush my teeth. I'm able to do, the hygiene things. Obviously, I hate brushing my teeth, and this is well documented online. I struggle to brush my teeth, but I can do it. Whereas before, I couldn't at all. It was painful sensory-wise. So yeah, I'm going off on one again, sorry. Right, secondary school. So I somehow, not entirely sure how, managed to get 11 GCSEs, A to C, although I had to retake maths GCSE 3 times. So when I was doing my A-levels, I had to retake it because I was like a few marks off, like I kept getting Ds and then I was a few marks off a C. And so you have to get a C in English and maths to go on to A-levels, and obviously to get a place at uni as well you have to have your English and maths, which was annoying, but anyway, I got it. It took me 3 times. And then I decided instead of doing 4 A-levels I was going to do 3, so I did media studies, graphic design and art. So I got so that's 2 years of study, so you have AS and then A2. So at the end of those 2 years, those kind of 3 courses are all coursework based but had exams. So I had a written graphic design exam, I had a written media studies exam in the last year, and for art I think I had like a 15-hour like art like exam where you had to create a piece over 15 hours over a few days or something like that. Anyway, so those worked out well for me because they weren't like totally exam based, like they were more coursework, kind of like the percentage was more coursework than it was exams. So yeah, I got an A in media studies, a B in graphic design and a C in art. So with those A-levels I kind of thought, what do I want to do? I don't think I can go to uni. I can't live away from home. I was not ready to live away from home. So I had a look around and I saw that a local uni to me, so one that was half an hour's drive, I did an art foundation course, and I knew that I wanted to get into graphic design, and this is a free like 1-year course where you try a bit of everything. You try a bit of like animation, fine art, fashion design, graphic design, video making, that sort of thing, and then from that you decide what degree you want to do. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. It's a free 1-year course, it's not going to cost me anything, and it will help me suss out what I want to do. So I did that. I think it was a really good thing to do because I met people who were then going to go on to the next kind of like degree with me, so that was really good. Again, it was difficult. I was still seeing a therapist, I think, as part of CAMS at that time, and I think I was seeing a therapist since sort of year 11, so maybe between the ages of like 16 and 19 I was seeing a therapist on and off for like a few months, and again this was like just talking, like CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy, which I, looking back on it, I didn't find it helpful, but I'm glad I did it, I think. So yeah, I was still seeing a therapist throughout sixth form and throughout the 1 year art course that I did, Art Foundation. So after kind of doing the Art Foundation course, and I started it thinking I want to do graphic design, and then I ended it thinking I still want to do graphic design, so that was good. I went on to study at the exact same uni, which was a really good idea because I knew the layout of the uni. I lived like 25 minutes, half an hour away, which was really good, and it meant that, okay, I didn't live on campus, but a lot of people also commuted in, which was really good. So yeah, I got because if you go from an Art Foundation course onto a degree at the same uni, it was like an art uni, you get like a little bursary, so I got some like kind of money towards my studies. So I went on to study BA Hons graphic design at the same university. And then in my first year at uni, they do like a year-wide like kind of assessment to see if anyone has dyslexia. It was just like an initiative at the time. So I was 19, and I was like picked up as someone who might, have some difficulties with processing and was like dyslexic on this like initial handout. And then I saw an assessor who went through a bit more stuff with me and was like, okay, we think, you might be dyslexic. And the assessment for dyslexia costs £300, or it did at the time, and the uni would pay half and I'd have to pay half. So me and my parents put money towards it, and I went ahead for the assessment because it would help me at uni, which I'll explain in a sec. So anyway, I had a dyslexia assessment. I think it was a few hours. I had it at the uni, so that was good. I didn't have to travel to any centre or anything like that. And yeah, it turns out at the age of 19 that I was told I was severely dyslexic, and no one else had picked this up. So as a result of that, I got so much help at uni. So there's something called I think it's a DSA, it's like disability, special. It's like a kind of, if you're seen to have special needs at uni, that they'll support you. It's called DSA allowance, and I was given a laptop with a software called Dragon Dictate, which you can kind of talk into a headset, and it will dictate all your information to words. So that was really helpful for my essays and stuff like that. And I also had a dictaphone, which I used every single time I had a lecture. It was so good because I could listen back to the lecture. Because I don't know if anyone else has ever found this, if you've been in a lecture and they go through the slides too quick and you can never write the stuff down and you can never remember stuff and you want to include it in your essays and stuff like that. So a dictaphone was so good. But also, in not just equipment, I got a dyslexia tutor as well, which was really handy because she would I think it was once or twice a week we'd meet up, especially when I had essays and stuff, and she also helped me a lot with my dissertation, just reading through it. So yeah, it was really beneficial to me to have a dyslexia assessment at uni. So yeah, had that. Where am I on to next? So I studied, graphic design. So I did 3 years of that at the same uni, and I graduated with a first class honours, which I'm so happy about because I worked really hard, and graphic design is a real passion for me, and I think it's fair to say it's a special interest. I can hyper-focus in and lose hours when designing stuff. So yeah, I was really happy that I graduated with first class honours. I graduated in 2016. And I've been a graphic designer in 2 companies since then. One was in an agency, but now I'm actually an in-house designer, and I kind of work at a nice sort of cool company. Well, I think so anyway. And I can sometimes work from home as well, which is good. But I think I'm kind of looking for my next job. I've been at my current job for 3 and a bit years, I think. And I think I want to work remote because I currently work in an open plan office, and if you know me, you know how I feel about open plan offices. I struggle at the moment with mine. There's about 30 to 40 people in my office, and everyone seems to talk to each other at their desks. It drives me nuts. And lunch smells and just constant noise and sound and background stuff. Anyway, I'm going off on one. Right. So that's a little kind of history as to Emily and how on earth did I get to the kind of, how did I start off the diagnosis process of getting an autism diagnosis? So, here we go. In June 2018, I was told by my therapist at the time, this was a therapist that I was seeing privately because I was really struggling, that she strongly felt I had a lot of autistic traits, and she urged me to go forward for a diagnosis, if possible, through my GP. And I was like, okay. Went back home, told my parents, because my therapist felt she was unable to help and support me further due to my autistic difficulties that were arising within the therapy sessions, which actually kind of sucked. I was like, oh, so you can't really help me. But anyway, I think I always had a feeling I might be on the spectrum, or I might be autistic, however you want to put it. But I'd never really properly considered going forward for a diagnosis, as it had never been picked up within my childhood. Obviously, now I'm telling you, it was never really picked up in my childhood, but actually there were signs in my childhood. So I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I know it's gonna be a long process. I'm sure there's a huge waiting time, which I was correct on. So I went to my local doctor's surgery and I discussed that I wanted to go forward for a diagnosis, and I didn't get anywhere. The doctor I saw, he's a nice doctor, but he just didn't see it. He said, he wasn't very kind of you don't look autistic sort of thing to me. I was like, great. So I didn't let that faze me. I went again and I saw a different doctor. And this was, again, a nice doctor. They're all nice doctors, but this one actually sort of took the time with me. She was much more understanding, and she agreed that, yeah, I will refer you, because I explained about what my therapist had said and that she couldn't help me. But she pre-warned me that the wait time suggested was 9 months. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not in a massive rush, I'm not a child that, is waiting, I need this help sort of thing, I've come through life sort of thing. So I was placed on a waiting list, and the letter came to confirm that in September 2018. So a lot of time went past. I phoned after 9 months to see what the wait time was like, and was told that in July and August 2018 there was a big spike of people coming forward for diagnosis. So there was a backlog of appointments that they needed to get through, and that's why I had to wait longer. I was like, okay, fine. So yeah, I actually waited 14 months in total. Yeah, it's a really long time to wait. But again, there are people who, are way more important, who are much younger than me, who, a diagnosis could really help them throughout their education and stuff like that. So I wasn't in a rush, but of course, it would have been nice to have been seen earlier, but, I wasn't, in terms of priorities, it wasn't that important. So yeah, waited 14 months, and I received a letter in October 2019 inviting me for an appointment in a month's time, and I was like, oh my god, and booked the appointment ASAP. I was like, quick, let's book this and see if I can get a diagnosis maybe before the end of 2019. That'd be ideal. So the paperwork came through alongside 5 questionnaires to fill out beforehand, and that I needed to bring to the appointment with me. And then a 3-hour appointment was booked for Friday, the 8th of November 2019 at 9:30am. So after booking my appointment, I decided that the sensible thing to do was to go into this all very open-minded, so I wasn't pinning any hope on getting or not getting a diagnosis. I think I did get steadily more nervous the closer the day came, which I know is only natural. It did really help to speak to people on Instagram who are part of the really nice autistic community, and they offered me so much help and support as to what they had experienced during the diagnosis journey. So yeah, it was good to have that sort of support and just say to people I'm nervous. Yeah, so the list of questionnaires I filled out. So there was 5, is that 5? Yeah, 5 of them. The first one was Early Childhood and Development Questionnaire, which my mum filled out, and they were all written answers. So they were very much from a baby through to being a toddler, a child, a teenager, and to now. And she had to really kind of go into detail about my past, it even started from her pregnancy. And we really, she really struggled with this because I'm 25 and it's been 25 years since I was born. And she was like, oh, I'm trying to remember my pregnancy and stuff like that. So it did go into a lot of detail. And then the second questionnaire was about me, my adulthood struggles, etc. And I filled that form out, and that was written answers. So stuff that I'm struggling with now, whereabouts I am in my life, do I have a job, what am I doing, how is every day for me, routine, structure, stuff like that. And then the third questionnaire was a short sensory profile, which was multiple choice, and I filled that out. So it went over a whole load of kind of sensory stuff. It was like it's like a renowned questionnaire they use for like autism assessments, but it's more aimed at children, but it's just like a standard assessment tool they use. So some of the questions are kind of more based towards children, but I was able to answer it from sort of my point of view anyway. And it went into like different kind of processing things, all the senses. So what I struggle with food wise, what I struggle with like sound and noise, colours, bright, kind of busy environments, all the way to kind of clothes and fabric and just everyday kind of my struggles. And then I had a autism assessment questionnaire, so that's number 4, and this was a multiple choice one. I had one version to fill out and my mum had one version to fill out, which was quite interesting because you can kind of compare answers a bit. Obviously it was multiple choice. It's weird to think back now. I did all those questionnaires. It was very much about kind of life and the struggles that I've been through and what I'm currently finding very difficult, and how I speak and how I react to things and my kind of tone of voice and my gestures. It went into quite some detail. And then the last kind of few, like 5, the 5th sort of form was like NHS personal details and like data consent forms so that they can hold your all this information. So I was like, okay, fine. So that was quite a lot to do. It took us a few like evenings, me and my mum, and we ended up sort of doing the forms sat next to each other, which really helped me because I really struggle to fill out forms because I don't really understand what the question is sometimes or what they're asking me. Hence the processing difficulties. But yeah, we filled them out together and we were both happy with them. So the next bit is the actual day of the assessment. So the actual day, I was really nervous, but I tried to keep the like feeling quite buried. So my appointment was 9:30 a.m. and I travelled there with my mum. It was at a local like hospital that does like, it's kind of mental health hospital, but they had like they have like a couple of rooms that they use for assessments and things like that. So I was in the waiting room for about 15 minutes as I got there early because that's me. Gotta get there early. There were actually lots of helpful leaflets dotted around the place for help with mental health and local support groups and helplines, which I always think is good to see and is quite a good thing to pick up in a waiting room rather than a magazine, just like see local groups and stuff like that. Anyway, at 9:30, like pretty much, my assessor came to meet me, and this is such an autistic thing looking back, but I was really worried she might shake my hand as an introduction, but she didn't, so I was like, phew, because that would have like thrown me off. We went into the room. I decided to have my mum present during my entire appointment. I gave consent to this. You have the option to bring someone with you and for them to pop in and out of your appointment depending on the questions being asked, or you can have them sit in and be incorporated into the questioning and discussions. Also, equally, you don't have to bring anyone in with you, but you'll need to ask someone you've known, someone who's known you since you were a child, to fill out some of the questionnaires beforehand. So that's just a little bit of background just in case you're worried you had to bring someone. You don't. So the actual assessment. It was very intense. It was 3 hours. The assessor and my mum and I spoke entirely about myself for the whole time, obviously, which felt really odd. Like, I've never spoken about myself at length before, and we discussed my life right from birth through to my childhood and eventual adulthood. The assessor explained it was important to be able to see and understand the possibility of autism running throughout my life in order to give an autism diagnosis. The assessor typed up notes throughout my entire assessment, which she explained would be in a final report. But she also regularly stopped my mum and I from talking over like past key things so she could go back and like delve into them a bit deeper. Anyway, my assessor was really lovely. That was something I was stressed about. I was like, is she gonna, get me sort of thing? But she explained everything really clearly. She took the time and she was happy to go through things when I didn't understand what she meant. So if I'm honest, I cried twice. I think I just got like overwhelmed, and it was really hard to talk about my own struggles and not feel like a bit upset. But I didn't really feel silly or judged at all, and it was probably the right place to, get upset and things. I had no idea if I was going to get a diagnosis like there and then at the end of the appointment or not, and to be honest, I was actually way too focused on trying to answer all her questions that I wasn't actually thinking that far ahead, which was a bit weird now in hindsight. But what is my diagnosis? So my assessor, she was such a lovely lady, and I'm so pleased she said this. She said, like, at the end, she was like, do you want to know what I think? And I was like, yes. And she said, congratulations, Emily, you have autism. And I think that was the most amazing thing to hear. Like, I think it shouldn't ever be said to someone that, sorry, you have autism, but congratulations. It's something to be congratulated of, because it's a good thing to have a diagnosis of something, like, finally, and something to be glad of. And I was really thankful to have such, like, a considerate assessor. Bless her, she was really nice. Something, like, at the end, she kind of went over bits and pieces, and she said that she thought I had something called alexithymia. So I'm just going to read out what the hell that is. Alexithymia is a subclinical phenomenon, don't know what that means, involving a lack of emotional awareness, or more specifically, difficulty in identifying and describing feelings and in distinguishing feelings from the bodily sensations of emotional arousal. So she said that for me, it's hard to identify and like describe how I'm feeling. And I kind of get that now. Like, if you read up about alexithymia, it's very much a kind of, you can't separate that. You can't describe properly how you're feeling and how stuff affects you. And I really do think I struggle with that. Anyway, back to the autism diagnosis. I am considered to be currently at a level 1 in terms of support. So they kind of give you like levels. There are 3 levels of support that you are considered under when you're diagnosed. Also, like, just to like kind of make it clear, my assessor said that you can shift through these levels as your life changes. This was also written into my final report as well. So, for example, your support level is very much dependent on things such as major changes in your life, your mental health, etc. And they understand that people do not just sit in one level all of their life. Also, I just want to be clear at this point, I was told that they no longer give the diagnosis of Asperger's. Okay, so if I go through the levels. Level 1, which is what I am, is requiring support. So, a person with level 1 autism may have difficulties in social situations. Level 1 is the least severe autism diagnosis. People in this category have social difficulties that require some support. They can find it difficult to initiate conversations with others and may respond inappropriately or lose interest quickly. As a result, it can be challenging for them to make friends, especially without the right support. People with level 1 autism may also show inflexible behaviours. It can be difficult for them to cope with changing situations or contexts such as new environments. They may need help with organisation and planning. So that's me, level 1. Okay, level 2, requiring substantial support. People in this category need more support than those with a level 1 diagnosis. They have more severe social deficits that make holding a conversation very challenging. Even with support, they may struggle to communicate coherently and are more likely to respond inappropriately to others. They may speak in short sentences or only discuss very specific topics. These individuals also have issues with non-verbal communication and might display behaviours such as facing away from the person with whom they are communicating. People with a level 2 diagnosis may also have inflexible behaviours that can interfere with daily functioning. They typically do not cope very well with changes which can cause them significant distress. Okay, and then level 3. Level 3 is the most severe... Level 3 is requiring very substantial support. Level 3 is the most severe autism diagnosis. People with a level 3 diagnosis have significant impairments in their verbal and non-verbal communication. They will often avoid interactions with others, but they may interact in a limited way if they must respond to others or communicate a need. Their behaviours are highly inflexible and repetitive. They may react strongly to changes and become highly distressed in a situation that requires them to alter their focus or task. So after she told me my diagnosis, I was wondering what would happen to all the questionnaires I filled out, because I brought them along to my appointment and she didn't look at them, and I was like, but she explained, and I didn't realise this, that they would be supporting evidence and that they are marked after the appointment and included in the final report. So actually, when you go to your assessment, you're presenting yourself as they don't have that much background on you at all. They don't have all that stuff to read beforehand. I did mention some of the stuff I'd already written in the questionnaire, but actually she kind of assessed me as a person rather than through my paperwork, which was quite good actually. So yeah, that would all be in the final report. The actual diagnosis I was given was purely based upon the assessor's own understanding and opinion that she built on me throughout my appointment, which I've kind of already said. Also, any old kind of supporting paperwork I gave to her, she could also read through, so old occupational therapy reports, mental health assessments, etc. So that helped her further, so I gave her copies of those. So yeah, it was actually quite refreshing, as my diagnosis was not based on just questionnaires, but our in-depth discussions and throughout the entire appointment on her own professional opinion. So what happens after diagnosis? Great question. My diagnosis and report was run past? Yeah. A head autism specialist and a clinical psychologist. So the assessor passed that on through them just to double check that what she's saying is correct. I then waited 6 to 8 weeks. I think it was more 6 weeks for a full written report and my diagnosis paperwork to be sent to me. So the report included everything discussed during my appointment and specific recommendations for me, as well as local support groups. The specific recommendations were nothing new to me particularly. I mean, obviously, maybe if you were going for an assessment with a child or with a teenager, those recommendations would be useful for people like teachers and support workers, recommendations that could help someone in their life. But obviously I'm 25, so a lot of the recommendations we discussed I was kind of already using, kind of sensory, toys and stuff and weighted blankets, and it was kind of bits and pieces like that. Anyway, my assessor also explained that the paperwork that I got through would have one specific sort of covering sheet that I can give to my employers that will explain my autism diagnosis to them, without having to attach my full written report, because obviously that's kind of very personal and private to me. So this was good to know. I'm yet to decide whether I will let my employer know about my difficulties. It might be something I go on to discuss in a separate blog post maybe, but she also told me that having a diagnosis or a confirmed assessment of autism now entitles me to have a social care assessment should I feel the need, although we both agreed that I wouldn't need this or benefit from this. I still live at home. I don't need any kind of social care support or anything like that. I'm okay at the moment. So yeah, what was I going to talk about? So yeah, I got the paperwork all through, and there was nothing there that was unexpected or anything I didn't disagree with or anything. It was all stuff we had discussed. One thing I did find really interesting was that the assessor said to me that from the start of the assessment, so from the start of her walking into the waiting room to come and get me, she was not analysing me, but almost testing me. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, I came into the waiting room and you gave me sort of a half smile when I said hello, and I was like, oh, did I? And then she was looking at me kind of from behaviour and like social perspective as to how I was gesturing throughout the conversation, which I wasn't, because I don't really like, I'm not really that like I don't gesture that much. She said, you know, I brought in a Tangle fidget with me, and I was very concentrated on it, and I wasn't very kind of wavy and stuff with my arms and like expressive. That's the word I'm trying to get to. I wasn't very expressive. And she said, you know, she tested me a few times by kind of half smiling at me, or kind of, you know, she kind of tried like some little kind of small things with me, and I didn't really respond, and I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice these things. So yeah, that was really interesting to hear afterwards. She's like, yeah, throughout this assessment I have been, you know, trying to kind of get you to smile at me, get you to respond to things, and I hadn't been, without realising. So yes, right, let's get a conclusion here, people. I feel very grateful that I had the opportunity to have an autism assessment at the age of 25. It was a really big thing for me, and I honestly feel like I finally have some closure. I am able to say I'm autistic, and it just sums up all my difficulties into one like understandable like label or saying. I know some people don't like saying that, but it's important to me. For such a long time I've been unable to summarise my difficulties quickly. Like, I always have to sort of delve into the specifics of my sensory problems and social struggles, but now I can just kind of say, you know, I'm autistic, and that's way more widely recognised than like sensory processing issues and, you know, sensory kind of just sort of sensory or neurological disorders. You know, it's a shame, but the autism label is helpful for me. My family were really supportive, and they always, like, my mum particularly, like, always stood up for me, like, throughout my life, especially, like, my education and stuff like that, and she knows me and my difficulties, like, the best, so I kind of say, like, you could, like, say she's a specialist in all things Emily related. And I also want to thank Michael for his, like, support throughout, but yeah, my parents and my family have been super supportive. Yeah, so anyway, I like to be really honest and genuine, both like on my podcast and on my blog and my social media platforms, about my life as a sensory being and now as an autistic person. And I hope this sort of comes across. I want to say thank you very much for listening to all this. It's a bit of a ramble, I realise, and it's so difficult to talk about this whole journey, because I can't include everything. I can't, even in that assessment, that 3-hour assessment, you can't sum up your life in 3 hours. You can't talk to an assessor about every struggle you've had and the sensory things that have been going on since you've been tiny. You know, you'd need multiple sessions, and you know, it's a weird thing to talk to someone and for them to give you a diagnosis quite quickly within 3 hours. And likewise, talking on this podcast, you know, you guys don't know my history, you don't know my entire background, you don't know my childhood and stuff like that, and it's kind of difficult to get that across, and I hope I've sort of got it across. But yeah, I want to say thank you for listening, and if you guys have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. So feel free to like hit me up on social media, like direct messages on Twitter or Instagram, or you can email me. It's 21andsensory@gmail.com. I'm honestly more than happy to answer any questions about it. So many people were so helpful to me, and I've had lots of people on Instagram now saying like, oh, I've got my diagnosis like assessment like coming up, and like we've talked about things, and it's so nice to be able to say like, yeah, I know how you're feeling, I know how nervous you are, I know what's coming up for you, you know, how are you finding the questionnaires, filling them out, you know. And there's been people who I've spoken to who have like split up their sessions, so instead of having like the 3-hour session like I did, some like kind of health services allow you to split that in two over 2 days, so there's that option as well, I guess, for some people. And it's just interesting to hear about like diagnoses across the world and how people are assessed. And yeah, so I'm still going on. I'm going to stop rambling. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm always happy to chat. Yeah, thank you, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye.